Hello, everybody. Hope all of you are doing well. And today we're going to be covering the best modifications, the modifications that I would say that you're going to appreciate every single day. So, no matter how long you've owned the car, whether you're brand new to the car and you just made the mod, so the mod is brand new, or you've had the mod for a very long time. Now, I will say that if you have two cars that kind of conflict with each other in the respect of the mods that you put on them, say one is a sports car and one's an SUV, then it'll make you appreciate these mods even more. And these ones are in no particular order other than just kind of where they go on the car. But this kind of got inspired by us looking at the M2 a while back, and they had this, whether you like the car or not, the design, they had this nice layout here in terms of, like all the new features for the car. And so I figured we could definitely do something very much like that for our current car. So although we're going to highlight some things that are kind of specific to, like the 2 Series and some of the things that we've already covered so far, this is going to apply to pretty much, this is going to apply to every single car that we have. So, every generation of BMW, there's just a upgraded iteration of it. But essentially, we're going to have something very, very similar for us that can either make up the difference or at least be an upgrade from stock. So whether it be something like seats, steering wheels, the information on the dash, all of these things are completely transferable to any other car. And so getting right into it, I would say the interior is probably where we would want to start. Say, for example, you've done all of the routine maintenance, all of the preventive maintenance, and now you want to get into something a little bit more performance-based or something aesthetically pleasing. This is where I would say you should start, because this is where you're going to spend most of the time. Although, yes, you're going to approach your car every single time, this is what really counts. This is what really matters. And although we could talk about things like the steering wheel and the like the bigger screen, those things are important. But if you're a daily driver and you already know the route that you're taking all the time, maybe a bigger screen isn't as important. If you're dealing with the F chassis and you have kind of like a newer steering wheel, like an upgraded steering wheel, it's nice. It's aesthetically pleasing. And if you prefer like the bigger grip, that is nice. But I would say that it's not as critical as these other two things. And the first one that we'll talk about is, I would say, second important to the steering wheel. So if you have an automatic transmission or a manual transmission, your hand is always going to be on the steering wheel no matter what. And this is why a lot of people will upgrade it, because when it comes to like everyday living and how you're using your car, you want the things that you interact with on a daily basis and the most frequently, you want those to be the most pleasing. If you grab a steering wheel and it's all kind of brittle, the leather is chipping, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to make you want to drive your car, or at the very least, it's going to give you that kind of like, oh, I got to drive the car again type of thing. So if you have an automatic transmission, I would say definitely go ahead and do the steering wheel if it's starting to show some good sign of wear. And even if it isn't, if maybe the leather or the Alcantara isn't doing too well, or if that is a feature that you want, then go ahead, because your hand is always going to be on it. But for the manual transmission owners out there, I would say you have to go with the shifter. Shifter is going to be the number one thing that I recommend to people. And I'm talking about not just the knob, but the actual short shifter. And so I know that that's kind of like a cheating and we're doing performance and interior, but the shifter only really matters when you're in the interior of the car. It doesn't really matter anywhere else. And here you can really tell the difference. The BMW stock shifter definitely leaves a lot to be desired, if you will. It feels very long, plasticky, flimsy. And that's even if the car is under 30,000 miles. If you've ever driven a manual BMW with the stock shifter that has like 100,000 miles, it feels extremely sloppy, very loose. And I'm not talking about just in neutral, even in the gears. You put it in gear and there's a lot of play in the shifter. But when you get a short shift kit, and I can speak on the UUC as well as the Turner Motorsports, I've tried both and they both have done the job. However, I will say that if you want something a little bit more sportier, shorter, easier to adjust, it's the Turner. I would say that UUC did a very good job early on with like the E36, E46 generation, but I feel like they kind of slept on the R&D side of things and just kind of kept doing what had worked for them instead of innovating past that point. And I feel like that's where Turner really kind of passed them up. And so because the Turner one is so adjustable, I would say that all the way up is great for a daily driver or somebody who doesn't want something really aggressive but just wants more precise shifts. Like my dad has the F30 and I raised his short shifter all the way up and he absolutely loves it. He noticed that it's much more precise, but he actually sat in my car before, the M235i, and I have that one all the way down. He actually does not like it that notchy and also that low as far as where he likes to sit in the position that he's in. So I would say even the shifter all the way down is good enough for somebody who wants something more aggressive. If you take it to the track, yeah, you'll probably want a chassis reinforced shifter, but Turner does give you the option to even try it out. They have the extendable shifter where you can see if that's a position that you like, and then you can go from there. So I do like that it does have the adjustability there from lower than OEM to complete race car status. So if you're looking to try it out or have the ability to try out different heights, I would say that the Turner Motorsport short shifter is the way to go. And once you've done that, either you do the steering wheel or you do the shifter. Seats are next. If you want the most comfortable seats, then you go with the sport seats, the regular non-M sport seats. Those ones, if you do a lot of long commuting, if you use your car primarily for road trips, or you just like to really, really relax and just kind of have a very comfy chair to kind of sit back in as you drive, the sport seats are going to do it for you. The M seats are a little bit more aggressive. The foam is definitely more dense, so it sits you more upright. And it's very hard to slouch. Like even if you recline the seat and everything, it's just so much harder to, because the lumbar support is even more aggressive. Even on the competition seats that you can adjust, they're so much more aggressive than if you put the sports seats lumbar support all the way forward. So you could go with the M seats if you want to go with lightweight seats. The Recaros are pretty good. They are expensive, but the nice thing about them is because they've been fitted onto so many cars, there's so many aftermarket brackets that are out there that you could do a full bare minimum, I just want a racetrack seat in there, all the way to I still have heated seats. I still have power seats, and it'll still work with the OEM buttons. You just have to configure the wiring in order for it to work that way. Otherwise, Recaro does have just like a little flip switch or a little module for the up and down for the seat position that they make themselves. But if you wanted to integrate it into the car, there have been people who have already done that. And then moving on to the exterior, I would say that wheels and tires are going to be the most noticeable. No matter, if you park your car backwards, forwards, no matter what, you're always going to be coming at it from a particular angle in which you're going to be able to see the wheels and tires. And this is where you're going to be able to double up in the performance aspect as well, because lighter weight wheels and better gripping tires are always going to improve your driving experience. And then if you have that fitment just right, your car is always going to look good. I would say that this is probably more for like a daily or a street car, because you do have that gap there. If you go down lower than that, it's going to be hard to clear, say like if you go over a speed bump, because it'll get into the fender, or if you have to clear speed bumps, driveways, things like that. So although a very low clearance is nice, having that gap there is good for practicality reasons. And then if you take your car on the track where you have minimal, disturbances in the roadway, then yeah, you could definitely lower it as well. But it's not just, people think like the gap here is just based off of the suspension that you have, but it really has a lot to do with the tire and wheel setup, mostly with the width of the wheel as well as the profile of it, because it'll allow the sidewall to climb up a little bit. So it does depend too, like all things being equal, all season tires, like if you compare Michelin all season 4s to the 4S's, although they're the same brand, the all season tire will have a higher tread wear. And that's why something like a all season 4 will have like I'm just going to make it up for right now. It has like a 35,000 mile warranty. And then the 4S's might have a 30,000 mile warranty. You have that much more thread there. And that's not taking into account the actual height, like the overall actual diameter of the wheel. Like both tires will be a 245, 35, 18, let's say. Both of them will have those measurements. However, the tread wear from the all-season tire is going to be more, and maybe you do want that extra tread wear to cover up the gap in the wheel, or maybe you don't want it and you don't want to run a stretch tire. You would run a summer tire in order to get the reduced tread wear, but you wouldn't have that stretch look either, and you would still be able to clean this up. That might have been a little bit confusing the way that I described it. So if it was, just let me know in the comments and I'll clean that up. But I think tires and wheels overall is a very complicated, or I would say confusing subject, because if you allow me to go off on a small tangent here, you have the 245, which is measured in millimeters, and that's, we would call that metric unit. And then 245, 45, that's a percentage of the first number. So we have metric, and then we have a percentage. And then the next number is in inches, which is standard. So that's US. And so that gets really confusing. And then when you get into wheels, you have to factor in offset, inset. It's very confusing. It would have been nice if it was just millimeters or inches all the way versus metric, percentage, standard unit. And then we have to worry about, okay, is it going to fit on the wheel? But I'm just saying is, if you have a good wheel and tire setup, that's probably like the best thing that you can do as far as exterior wise, that will clean up the look of your car, and it'll give you good performance as well. Another thing in the exterior, I would say that you'll notice all the time is the headlights. We all know that the BMW halogens are probably one of the worst headlights that there is. And if I'm not mistaken, the F30 headlights got one of like the lowest ratings of all the cars in its class, not just with BMWs, but all car manufacturers as far as like headlight output. And even if you don't change the whole housing, like to an LED or LCI retrofit, if you just simply switch out that halogen bulb for an LED bulb, which is what's recommended if you're going to keep the stock halogen housing. Don't switch to HID because you don't have the reflector in there. Switch it out to LED. It's something about the light pattern that reflects better in a typical halogen housing. So unless you're switching out the whole housing with a projector style lens that's meant for a HID light, use the LED bulb in a halogen housing. That's going to give you the better light output directed at where you want it to be. That's something that you'll notice and you'll appreciate all the time. Whether you do the complete replacement or not, that's up to you. But having better light output, especially for somebody who drives a lot at night, if you say like work a swing shift, a graveyard shift, you will definitely appreciate this. And I would say this is more important than your wheels and tires. Being able to see on the road, if you live in an area like I do that has a lot of potholes, you'll want to see them at night. So definitely the headlights is what I'll say. And then even if you do stick with the halogen ones, if they're starting to fade, just getting one of those headlight restoration kits, you'll be surprised with how much of an improvement it does to the exterior of your car. And I feel like wheels and tires, headlights, these are all things that are going to help you get a better driving experience. Yes, like front lips and diffusers and, blacking out the trim and all that stuff. That stuff, it looks cool. It really does. It just doesn't serve like a function when you're actually driving. If you have a show car or you do a lot of stuff for Instagram, or you take a lot of pictures with your car, even if it's not for Instagram or filming and you want it to look good, that's great. If we're just talking about the driving experience, wheels and tires and headlights, depending on your setup, one is going to be more important than the other, right? If your tires are coming up bald, I would say do the tires first. If your wheels and tires are good, even if they're stock, upgrade your headlights. You won't regret it. And then if we do want to get into the styling of things, I would say like the GTS hood is probably like my favorite exterior mod that I've done so far. I had issues when I first put in my KWs clearing the speed bumps around my house. It was extremely hard for me to do it. I would have to like angle the car perfectly, and if I didn't take it right where I needed to, because the speed bump also wasn't perfectly paved, I would scrape. It actually took the 20 pounds from the GTS hood as well as the 10 pounds from the Wagner tuning intercooler in order for me to clear the speed bumps. It was better once I did the GTS hood, and then I don't even need to take it at an angle anymore now that I did the Wagner. So I would say like this definitely does have a purpose as far as drivability is concerned if you plan to lower your car, just because speed bumps are a real thing for a daily driver, and it looks, it does look good. I would say that it also helps with the heat scavenging as well, because we all know that these cars run hot. If they didn't run hot, we wouldn't have so many issues with things like the plastic components. Although they would go bad eventually, we know that even like a newer car under stock boost can crack the charge pipe. The coolant expansion tank hose, that little hose, that breaks a lot. And that's right in this area where the vent is. The oil thermostat is here, so that would kind of help with heat. And this hood isn't so big and doesn't scavenge so much heat to the point where you're not going to be running at optimal temperatures. It just helps bring out the extra heat that's there. I've never had an issue where I haven't been able to get to optimal temperatures in about the same amount of time, or that even if I have like a long distance drive, like back home, it's like 30 minutes. I've never really dropped past like the optimal running temp. Like once I'm there, right? So this isn't like you're running without a hood type of thing. So it does have some practical aspects in there as well. I would say that the reason why I place it third is because generally speaking, after those first two, this is where I would place it at third. It's not the most important, but it does serve a purpose. And when we get into performance, I think you guys already know this. My number one is always going to be the KWs or suspension overall. You don't have to go KW. You could go Bilstein. Bilstein's a good company. ST is KW's sister company. And I think the only real difference is like the technology is the same as far as like spring rates, dampening, you know, all of those components kind of all working together is the same. It's the material that's different. So the KWs will use stainless steel and has a lifetime warranty. The STs use galvanized zinc as their outer coating, and they have a 5-year warranty. So it depends. Do you plan to keep your car for a long time? Are you in an area with a lot of salt? And there have been some people that have reported that they do live in areas where they do salt the roads, and they haven't had an issue with the ST. So that zinc coating is doing a pretty good job. However, if you plan to keep your car over 5 years and you do live in an area that does salt the roads, you know, the coating isn't going to last forever. It's kind of like ceramic coating, right? You know, it does have a shelf life. Ceramic coating might work well for like 2 years, 3 years if you use the upkeep sprays with it and you maintain it a lot. However, there is going to come a time where you will need to reapply the coating, and it's the same thing with the STs as well. But Bilstein does offer a lifetime warranty. It's just, from what I've seen, they're a lot slower than KW. And if you're looking for a good budget brand, I would say BC Racing is another one. However, I would say look to Justin Boyce, I think is how you say his name, Bice, for his review on it, because he's actually had the BCs and he's had the Bilsteins. And from what a lot of people tell me is the Bilsteins compare very, very closely to the KWs. So at least he's somebody that you could reference that actually has had BCs and then went to, you know, Bilstein. I can only reference KWs because I've only driven on 2 sets of KWs, the DDCs and the V1s. And then, you know, if somebody wants, you know, me to sit in their car as if they have BCs, I'm more than happy to do that. And then I can give my opinion. But for now, I would say suspension is good because it's going to increase the looks of your car, but it's also going to let your car handle better. And in something like the 2 Series, I do regret the order in which that I upgraded the suspension. I wish that I did the coilovers first instead of last, because if I had did them, I probably wouldn't have gotten the sway bars after all. The sway bars, the installation is just so much more of a headache, so much more time consuming than coilovers for much less of a handling improvement. And the coilovers do such a good job. And I think it's probably because it's in a shorter wheelbase car like the 2 Series that I feel like I didn't really need the upgraded sway bar. Like, I did all the suspension stuff on my car and I'm like, oh, okay, it works very nice. And then I upgraded the just to the V1s on somebody else's 228i xDrive. And I was like, this car handles very close to mine. I can tell that there's a little bit of like softness and sloppiness in the steering, and that's probably because of, you know, I have the upgraded control arms. But as far as like the turn in and then like holding through the turn, I want to say it's like 95% of what my car can do with the sway bar. And so that would have been like almost $1,000 that I could have saved and put it to something else, right? And I would say with the turbo cars, anything in the engine bay, for the most part, if it's not like I'm upgrading from plastic to metal, it's almost like a wash unless you're like doing the turbos. Intake is mostly sound. You might pick up a little bit of horsepower here or there, but it's not going to be that significant. It's really for the sound. And that's because most of the cooling of the air process happens at the intercooler. So if you wanted to increase performance by getting in colder air, it's the intercooler, not the intake, that you want to upgrade. Just because it's very low pressure and because it sits so high in the engine bay, it's not as susceptible to that heat soaking issue like the charge pipe is, which deals with pressurized air and runs all the way from the bottom of the engine bay to the top. So it's getting a wide range of air temperatures and pressurized air. So that's probably why it cracks. It's not just that, you turn on the car, it reaches optimal temp and then turns back off. It's that it's dealing with a lot of range of temperatures, and then the air is pressurized as well. The turbo inlet pipe, it's very hot because it's right next to the turbo. And the only reason why it's not as big of an issue as the charge pipe is because that area, like right here underneath the coolant expansion tank, it's so closely packed. Like even if it cracks or breaks, like chances are it's just going to like still kind of be all together. Like all the pieces, like it might be cracked, but it's going to be like kind of like this. Like it's not going to separate. Like the charge pipe, when it cracks, it's going to come off. When the turbo inlet pipe cracks, it's probably just still going to be all right there. You might not even get a check engine light telling you that it's broken until you start messing with things like the intake. The strut bars here, very minimal. It's a cool project to do if you want to have some fun, but engine-based stuff, unless you're doing some hardcore tuning and unless you're changing out the turbo, it's very minimal. I would say if you want something more noticeable, you would go with the exhaust. Now, this isn't something that I've actually done with my car or any of the cars as of yet, but just working with SV Bimmer and going through like AWE, Remus, and Performance on like other cars that aren't mine, the exhaust isn't like what it was, I would say, like for like E36, E46, where you're going to drop 20 pounds and you're going to pick up, 20 to 40 horsepower. You're probably only dropping maybe 5 to 10 pounds, depending on the brand and the material that they're using. You might drop 15 or 20 if you go titanium, but then you're paying a huge premium for it. The more noticeable thing is going to be sound, and you're going to get better flow. So you might drop a few pounds and you're going to get better flow. So that's what I would say is if you want performance, it's really all in the suspension. I would really throw it all at the suspension, brakes, control arms. That's where you're really going to get the most out of it. I mean, BMWs really aren't known to be like extremely overloaded in the horsepower aspect of things. They're not meant to be like straight line machines. They're meant to be really good handling machines. So play to their strengths, right? If they're meant to be good handling cars, then it's a suspension. It's a suspension that you'll want to upgrade in order to get the most out of those cars. And so with that, we do have a few questions over here. Let me see what we got here. Can you use Oz? Oh, whoops, I'm not on the other one. Can you use Osram LEDs for the projector lights? I am unfamiliar with that brand. LEDs for the projector lights. If you upgrade the housing, and I hope I'm saying your name right, Kiajin. If you upgrade the headlight housing, you'll want to also ask the manufacturer, is it meant to fit LEDs or HIDs? And I've done some testing on both, not like super long term, but the LEDs, even in a projector housing, do very well. There is a little bit of upward scatter that you can't really control, so that might get annoying to the cars that are behind you or the oncoming traffic. But if you have like a 3 Series, let's say, and you have the car lowered and you tilt the beams all the way down, that should minimize it. Like someone's gonna have to take it on at just the right angle, at just the right position in order for it to be annoying, and it's probably going to be oncoming traffic, so that wouldn't be an issue. It's just that the projector style lenses are meant to properly concentrate the HID light like downward and then properly spread them. It's not, it's something about the wavelength or the wave pattern of the LED bulb that just doesn't focus as optimally as a HID light would. And Frosty B is asking about xenon versus LED. From what I've seen or what I've researched is LED is brighter, but in the right housing, xenon is, it's more concentrated on where you want it to be. Like LED, it's bright, but it's bright like everywhere. Versus xenon, when you put it in the projector, it's going to be bright only where you want it. And then the LEDs, you can kind of get that result with a projector light. You will just have that little bit of scatter that I was talking about earlier as well. Kaijin. I was thinking of changing mine to projector ones, but most of them come without LEDs, so I was wondering how hard the whole install is. Oh, it's not hard at all. They if you look at, let me see if I can pull up my video. It's extremely easy. Let me see. And I will throw it in the chat. Honestly, it's just like installing a halogen with a little bit more length on the cord. But it fits in the housing. There's no cutting or anything like that, like you would have to do with HIDs. And that's why I do generally recommend LEDs even with a projector bulb, because you would have to like make a cutout for the wiring to run to the ballast, unless there's somewhere to house the ballast inside of the headlight. Running HIDs takes a little bit more work. There you go. So I just linked to the video where I use a projector style headlight and installed LEDs instead of HIDs. So hopefully that will help you. And there's a few like side-by-side comparisons there. And hopefully that can help you. So in that case, maybe after you look at like the comparison, I think I did halogen, the projector with the halogen, and then the LED with the projector. Maybe depending on which one you'll want, you'll know which one you want. And I think, let me see if I have another one here. I think this one I tested the LED bulbs in a halogen housing. And so maybe you'll want to take a look at that and see if that helps you as well. And so let me know if that helps. Soul Slinger, how's it going, man? Hope everything is going well with you. I like my xenon headlights. In my experience, the LED lights don't last very long, maybe a few months before nodes start flickering. Really? You know what? I have noticed that a lot with the Angel Eyes. I haven't reached that point. So I'm actually running LEDs on my dad's F30 right now. The red one, the last video that I posted, that's actually what we're running right now. That's the current setup on the car. And I haven't gotten the flicker on the actual, like the low beam bulb, but I've gotten it on the Angel Eyes. And a lot of people actually say that too. I had angel eyes on my E36 a while back. I would get flickering on those. It's kind of like the angel eyes. I don't know if they use a different LED, the quality of LED, or maybe it's the arrangement of it, whatever it is. But I've noticed that the angel eyes give issues before the actual bulb. Conversion requires a chip to mitigate the computer fault codes. Oh, okay. Honestly, I did read somewhere on forums for that. I just coded it out with Bimmer code. So the way that you'll want to code it out, at least what's working for me right now, is you convert everything to an LED bulb on Bimmer code, and then whatever setting that they give you to set it as far as like the hertz, set it to the maximum. And that gets rid of the flickering from the actual headlight bulb. As far as the angel eyes, it's hit or miss. Like the first set of projectors that I got, it worked. The ones with the white ones worked. The ones on the red car, even setting it all the way up, it didn't get rid of it. So I think it really depends on the manufacturer. And from my findings, it's almost all of these headlights, no matter what brand you get it from, they're pretty much getting it all from the same distributor. It's made somewhere in China. Somehow they get their hands on like BMW headlights, and then like they just gut them, and then they replace the internals with the LED chips for the angel eyes, the housing for the LEDs or the HIDs, and they put in the reflectors. They do all that stuff. But yeah, from what I've seen, they all get it from some point in time. They get it from the same distributor, or a handful of distributors, I should say. User 1, what kind of oil do you recommend for the 235i? So I've run Castrol 540, and I've run the liquid Molygen, and they both have done fine for a daily driven situation. I would say if you suspect a leak, you'll want to lean towards the Molygen, just because it has that technology where if you do have a leak, you just get a black light and it will light up for you. Let me see if I have that video here. Here we go. Honestly, in my testing, yeah, I didn't send anything out to a lab. But I think as far as like what we notice, like on a daily during our drives, that's what you would notice. So honestly, it's not the most in-depth, but I think other people have done in-depth reviews, like sent their stuff out to a lab and see how it does. And some people like liquid moly, some people don't, right? Some people will recommend AMSOIL. But honestly, if you're changing your oil out frequently enough, if you're doing it and you're not running your car that hard, the oil probably won't matter as much, as long as it's all LLO1. Here's one. KW look nice. They do. The only thing is that they're hiding behind the wheel. So hopefully you have nice wheels to look at. And then if it's angled just right, you can peek through and you can see that yellow spring. Shane, did you put spacers on your M235i? No, I did not. So the fitment on that is a 18.5 by 8.5 with a 35 offset. However, I do have camber plates and adjustable control arms. However, I will say that I fit that wheel on in the front even with just the adjustable control arms. And I fit those wheels on an X-Drive car with no issue. No spacers as well. If so, did you take off the black rubber? Okay, yeah. So I didn't use space, so I don't know as to this one. Weekender, springs versus coilovers. Honestly, I would say coilovers. If you're installing it yourself, coilovers, mostly because if you're doing the install, and you're doing springs, you're going to have to get a spring compressor, or you're going to have to borrow one. And then in the rear, you're doing like 80% of the work. Honestly, it's just for a little bit more. And I would say that if we're talking about the 2 Series, let me see here. Okay, so they do, wait, let me see. Is this for the 2 Series? Okay, yeah, so this is for the 2 Series. That's pretty expensive. Let me double check this. This seems really okay. Let me show you guys what I'm getting over here. So MSS is like the only one who makes adjustable springs for the 2 Series as of right now, I guess. Not even KW. I just went on KW's website and they don't even have it on their official website. Like they don't have a Haas kit for the 2 Series. And so you're talking like after tax, it's gonna be $1,100. Let me look at this. Okay, so let's say 17. Okay, so for $600 more, you can get coilovers. You're gonna be doing like 80% of the work already for the springs. And even if you get like the cheaper springs, let me see. H&R springs, yeah, they're only like a few $100s, but that's a set height. That's a set height for those springs. Like you can't adjust it. Once it's in, it's in. And you're going to have to do like a serious amount of research to figure out what's going to work for that setup, just because it's set. And it is cheaper. It'll get you the looks. However, your dampers are going to wear down faster because it's not meant to work with them. The good thing about going with something like MSS is that they claim that their spring rates are meant to work with the OEM springs. So they're not going to degrade the longevity of the springs are meant to work with the struts. So it's not going to decrease the longevity. So with any lowering spring, unless you're doing something like with MSS or the Haas kit from KW, or even H&R has made some springs for like the G chassis cars that are supposed to be designed to work with the struts. You're going to get a worse quality of ride. It'll look nice for a while, but I'm almost always going to say get the coilovers. Just save up and get the coilovers. Eduardo, hi Fritz. I'd say for performance, I would first change tires, the suspension, then the brake pads for some grippier ones. Cheap mod is to open the brake vents. Very beneficial for spirited driving. Okay, that's a good one. All right. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, all things being equal, I would say that's right on point. I would, just because a lot of people are getting their cars used now, I would say just see what needs to be addressed first. You know, sometimes you're going to get a car that has suspension done, or maybe they just changed the tires on the car, so you don't really need to address that. But all things being equal, that's what you said there looks good to me. And then as far as opening up the brake vents, I like that one. That was a good one. That was a good one. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't even think of that. Nice. Soul Slinger. I'm in deep with the 540i. Front end is tore down and doing upper timing cover gaskets. I fired the parts cannon. All sensors and cooling systems. Front of the engine is tore down at the moment. Ooh. You are in deep. Oh my goodness. Upper timing cover gasket. Oh my goodness. Jeez. You are in deep, but I have a feeling that you're enjoying this. You know, after all the conversations that we've had, after you've been kind enough to show me what you've got going on in your garage, I have a sneaking suspicion that you're actually having fun with this. And you know, I probably know you the best in the chat right now, but if I'm going to bet out of any of us, you know, myself included, in this chat who can get that 540i up and going, I'm gonna say you're the guy. So I hope you are enjoying yourself, and I've got nothing but confidence in you. I feel like it might just take you a little bit longer, but this is probably not that big of an issue for you. You know, with all the experience that you have, I feel like you'll, like, if you had all the tools accessible to you right there, and you had, you know, just like maybe a couple of days to yourself to do just that, I feel like you would bang it out and probably have a bunch of time left over. The Weekender. Yeah, for a 2 Series, I have an X-Drive MT35i convertible. Yeah, I've fit on 18 by 8.5 with a 35 offset on those KW V1s with the Michelin Pilot Sport 225 45 18s. And it runs fine. You'll have the clearance. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going to see that car again, and I can get confirmation. And then if you follow me on Instagram, I can post it as well. But the first time I put those wheels and tires on there, it seemed fine. So let me put it here. So with KW V1 18 by 8.5, offset was 35, and then what I said at 225. This is the part that I kind of forget. It's either a 225 35 or a 45. I want to say it's a 45. There you go. I put it in the chat just so that you would have it. But when I get the car back, I'll let you know. User 1. Have you had to replace bushings, and if so, OEM or aftermarket? Bushings in terms of the sway bar bushings, I did when I upgraded the sway bar, so that's front and rear. Because I went full adjustable SPL, the lower control arm, the thrust arm, as well as the tension strut in the back, I did. I would almost always go aftermarket. I hate OEM bushings because you always have to torque at height. If you're going to press it out anyways, and you don't want the hassle of pressing in a spherical one or a metal one, even for a daily driver one, I wouldn't recommend going metal. I would say go poly. The only thing with poly is that you're going to have to lube it every once in a while so it doesn't make noise. But installing a poly bushing is so much easier just because it's broken up into those halves. And then all that you have to do is slide in the metal rod and boom, you're done. Like, poly bushings are so much easier. It's just, oh, and then you have to get silicone based lubricant in order to lube them, because if you use like regular like lithium, or if you use other non-silicone based grease, it can cause the polyurethane to swell, and then you'll have issues. So make sure to use silicone based grease so it doesn't swell. User one, 235i as well. Okay, right on. Eduardo, tension arms bushings will make the steering feel tight. JRZ makes good suspension. Okay, thanks for the heads up. The tension, oh, so the tension arm, so that's in the front. Yeah, it does. I would say that the arms in the rear, at least, I mean, I've only done one, but just because there's so many of them, your alignment shop is going to hate you, for one. And then two, I would say, unless you absolutely need to, I would say only doing the tension strut and the oh my goodness, and the tension arm. Let's look on here together. SPL, let's go on to SPL's website. Oh, okay. In the rear, and the reason why I don't recommend this one is because in the rear, you're not really going to notice it. And then these ones, if you don't really interact with them, it's not like when you do coilovers, you don't have to unbolt these. Like, you don't really have to unbolt these in order to do something else. For the most part, you really don't. The one bushing that you do have for the carrier arm, if you wanted to, push that one out and get in a poly one, that would make sense. Just because you're going to have to open it up anyways when you do the coilovers. But here we go. Oh, the toe links. Yeah, so I would say do the toe links as well as the rear traction links. And the reason why is because those are the two things that really lock in your suspension. You do have some points of adjustability elsewhere, but these are the two that really lock it in. I would say, if you want to think about it, is the tension strut is actually what sets the alignment for the most part. This is probably like the biggest factor. You do on the lower, like in the rear lower control arm, like the carrier that houses the spring, there's a little bit of adjustment there. But I would say that most of the adjustment is here at the toe links, and then once you lock it out, like, it's almost set, right? Of course, as the rubber bushings go bad, it'll degrade. This is kind of what you use to set your rear alignment. The rear traction link, you can kind of think of it as the padlock that secures it, right? So when you close the door to your house, like, the door is closed, but what prevents people from opening the door? For our alignment, it's going to be the rear traction link. And you might think of, well, what would cause the alignment to go bad? Potholes, road imperfections, if you take a speed bump too fast, any of those things, any like jarring thing in the rear could like move that eccentric bolt off to the side a little bit, right? It could loosen up the rubber bushing a little bit. But if you lock it in with the toe link, and then you have your padlock as the rear traction link to save the alignment from those imperfections, that's going to keep your car aligned for so much longer, and it's going to give you better wear on your tires. So although most the other arms, like these ones, I wouldn't say, I would say your money, if you can catch this and this on sale, that's where you'll want your money for rear arms. For the fronts, exactly what Eduardo was saying is, I can definitely agree that the tension rods and the lower control arm is worth it. If you get these two in, just ride your stock end links. You don't need to do this. Everybody that I've asked said that they haven't noticed much of a difference here. If you're really tracking your car, you're going hard, you really want your angles to be perfect because you do have the adjustable washers here. And if you want the height of the car and the arms to be all perfect, then by all means, go ahead and get this. But if you're daily driving your car and you have suspension in already, just the lower control arms and the tension rods are going to be enough. Let's see here. Emmanuel Bell. Oh, well. Fritz, I just recently got an M235i and you've been a staple on my YouTube BMW menu. All right. Well, I hope that it's all been helpful for you. Congratulations on the new car. Welcome to the community. Feel free to drop it in the Facebook groups. I'm in there from time to time. But that group has been pretty good. I would say I've seen a lot of people like on forums. I want to say that the Facebook group is probably like the nicest. Yes, there are some people who get mad if you ask the same question all the time. But I mean, most people on Facebook, I feel like they're more patient with you, right? They're more willing to help you. And then hopefully it's more productive for you if you're new to this platform, that you can actually learn. I don't necessarily care for the people like on forums that say, oh, this question has been asked before so many times, blah, blah, blah. And maybe back when the internet was first born and server space was an issue, I guess that could be a thing. But if you're going to take the time out to tell somebody, put it in search, you could have just taken the time to type in the answer to the question, right? So that's how I feel about it, is if you're going to take time to say something like that to somebody on forums, and of course this is just my opinion, you also had the time to give them the correct answer. And that's where I will say that the Facebook group is more forgiving, because most of the time when people do comment, they will actually link you in or point you in the right direction if they don't necessarily have the answer. Soul Singer, my car's exploding also, or my cat's exploding also. So I'm knocking those out as well. Oh, okay. Okay. Your catalytic converter, I'm assuming, right? Because if you have cats and they're exploding from the opposite direction in which that they eat, then that would be a different issue. And I hope it's not that, because that would be quite the mess. So I hope it's your catalytic converters that you're referring to. I don't know why I was just thinking like pet cats for a second there. Emmanuel, thank you. You're very welcome. Yeah. So jump on those Facebook groups. Let me know. Hopefully it turns out well. You're always free to DM me, Instagram, TikTok, and FroomTuber, and I'll help out whenever I can. Soul Singers, pics are posted on Discord. Oh, that's okay. I gotta take a look. I'll take a look after this. I'm enjoying it except for waiting for parts delivery. That is the worst. So this is, I'll admit, this is like the worst thing of all of work on cars. It's like, all right, I'm ready. I got my tools ready. I got time to work on the car. Check the mail. It's still not there. It's en route. Like, and then I feel like UPS, USPS, they've stopped giving up delivery updates. It's just like, we picked it up. It's en route. And the next thing you know, it's delivered, or it's still en route. So yeah, that is the most annoying thing. Pilar, good afternoon, Fritz. Would you happen to know where the F87 side mirrors fit? Oh, would the F87 side mirrors fit on the F22 M235i? It's not necessarily a straightforward plug and play thing. IND has a set. I don't know if it comes off of the F87, but IND does have a set of F87 style mirrors that can go on the M235i. I would say look there and see if you can find a PDF as far as the install, and let that guide you. Eduardo, a little expensive, much less than paint. But if you would like to completely change the appearance of your car, you could wrap it in any color. Yes, you could. And guys, I'm sorry, but I can't really help you out with that one. I tried filming a roof wrap and it didn't necessarily go as planned. I mean, just the filming aspect of it, but yeah, wrapping is an art. I will give anybody moral support for the wrap. I just some things are easier, like the small pieces, like the mirrors and the kidney grills, like those are easy to wrap, right? You can get the whole piece over it and it's fine. But wrapping a whole car, Eduardo, if you're good at that, man, list your contact info and your rates if you want. Like let people know where you're at, how to contact you, and what your rates are. I would say wrap it's an art form, and it really depends on the brand that you get and your experience level. I would say it's like 80-20, 80% skill, because if you're really good, you know how to work with any wrap. But there comes a point in time where, depending on what part of the car you're working on, the flexibility of the wrap and the tack of the wrap is really going to matter. And Pilar, I'm actually going to pull this up for you right now. Oh, it's by Auto Technic. Okay. Let me see here. Let's see here. Okay. So this is it. So you go on IND's website. I mean, you could always just type in M235 M2 mirror retrofit, and this is something that would pop up. Product inquiry. Okay, I don't see any. Oh, fits the following, F22 right there. So you do need like the whole housing. That's the only thing. And then you'll need all of this stuff. So, and I don't know if Auto Technic may, so like the turn signals in here, I don't know if they made the electrical harness, like if this harness is the same from the F87 as it is from the F22, I don't know. If it isn't, they may have taken this harness from the F22 and put it onto the side marker for the F87. So that might be why you need a kit. I don't know though. So hopefully this gets you headed in the right path. Eduardo also helps cover rough paint. Okay. Oh yeah. We're talking about wrap. That's right. Soul Singer. Oh, here we go. Oh, Soul Singer Eduardo's got something for you. I want to get mine wrapped eventually. Definitely easier than paint. I like that I can change the color later too. Yeah. Eduardo, man, I mean, if you're down to help people, man, I mean, let us know. I mean, if I can, I mean, I'm more than happy to shoot people your way. Would you user one? Would you recommend the BMW LSD or go aftermarket for the M235i? Thank you for all the videos. Epic. No problem. Glad they were very helpful. LSD wave track, plain and simple. Just because the mechanism, it's actually like a waved kind of shape. So I don't know how to. It's kind of like this, like it wraps into itself like that, and then but it's very loose. So like if you have enough pressure, yes, it can move out, right? But it's an actual. It's almost like a washer, like a waved washer. You can think about it, and that's how it will lock into position. The Quaif, the M Performance, they work on friction, almost like sandpaper. So it's much. The tension isn't as much as that wave washer description that I gave, which is probably a terrible way to describe it. However, that's the best way that I can put it. And there is a chance, I think, so you will have better traction just because of the physical design of it. And then because it actually has that kind of curvature to it, let's just say in an emergency situation, a freak accident happens, or maybe you just get some wheel hop, whatever reason, and you don't have both wheels on the ground. Let's just say like one wheel jumps up, no matter how momentary it is, you will still have some power going to that wheel just because of that the dynamics of it. So say, for example, that one wheel goes up versus all the power transferring to the wheel that's on the ground and potentially causing you to go in the wrong direction even more versus a slower gradual pace. You will have power going to the other wheel, so not all the power will be diverted, right? So it's not like you hit the bump, you go up. It's not going to be like a sudden jolt of power to that other wheel because there's no pressure there, because the other one works like a friction because of the sandpaper. That's like one of the features that they do highlight, though. It's not the key feature that I would say like you should get it. It's just that because you have the actual plate there in that wave configuration, it also doesn't require maintenance. After a while, those friction plates, they do wear off, and you will have to service it, albeit it's going to be a very long time before you have to do it. The wave track, you never do. And if I'm not mistaken, it has a lifetime warranty, and the warranty on the wave track is transferable from owner to owner. It's not on the original owner. So it will actually increase the value of your car as well. Soul Slinger, the catalytic converters started melting from the rear, began blowing apart, and shot chunks out the exhaust. This is what I meant. Okay, I'm going to break the rest out and roll with it. Hey man, you got a free downpipe. If you can, keep the metals and sell it. Okay, that's what I was hoping for. That's not what I thought of originally for one reason or another, but I am glad that it is this and not the other thing that I was thinking about. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of people who do like the cheap catless downpipe upgrade and they just break apart the metals in there, they actually end up selling that metal off. So maybe it could fund a mod or two. Emmanuel Bell, I plan to track my M235i. What are your thoughts on upgrading the stock 340mm fronts to 370 or 380? Would dedicated hoses from the ducts to the calipers suffice, or the added material, or is the added material a must? The ducting, I think there, if I'm not mistaken, there already is a duct. I mean, you might be able to add more. The only hard part is on the M235i, you have the oil cooler on the driver's side. On the passenger side, I think it's more or less a straight. No, it's not. On the M235i, you have, sorry, I'm mistaken. You have the auxiliary radiator on the driver's side, and you have the oil cooler on the right. So there is a little bit of a limitation there as far as like how you can duct things. I would say if you go up in brake size, I forget where the threshold is before you need to coat it. I really do forget the size. I know that like if you go to like the M2 brakes or the M3 brakes, like the gold caliper brakes, and you go with the ceramic rotors, you have to retrofit the brake booster and you have to coat it in. However, you'll have to research this. I'm sorry, I can't help you out on the size. But bigger brakes would help. especially if you track it, just because you would want the better heat dissipation because it would be bigger, and that's where you would really see the benefits of a big brake kit. However, I'm just not sure at what size you need to upgrade the booster, and you need to code it in. It's the coding that you're going to have to really do your research and find somebody who can actually code it. Because the booster is easy, right? You could get one on eBay. You could go to the BMW dealership and you could pick one up from the parts department. It's finding someone that's willing to code it for you. That would be the issue. Eduardo, I have a friend who's really good at wrapping cars. He wraps footballers' cars. Okay. The only problem is that we live in Italy. Oh, well, hey, man, I mean, I hope that you're not the only one from Italy. I mean, you can. It's okay. I mean, you never know, right? I mean, I didn't know that you were in Italy until just now, actually. So, yeah, why not? I mean, if there's anybody else here from Italy, don't let Eduardo feel alone. Or Eduardo, I mean, if you want, if your friend is okay with giving out that information, send me a DM on Instagram and I'm more than happy to post it to my stories. I mean, whoever we can help is whoever we can help, right? Manny, I believe you are correct. There is coding required to adjust the brake bias. I'm trying to avoid the coding. I was meaning dedicated time attack style hoses to a duct shield bracket. I have not researched that. I mean, anything to improve the cooling for your brake on a track car is going to be beneficial. If you're going to fab it yourself, I don't see why not, because if you're going to fab it yourself, you're going to know how to wire it up, right? If you're going to have an aftermarket manufacturer do it, they might have something where like you have to change this or move this or do this, and then you'll have to figure out if it's worth it or not. I just haven't done that much research on this. I would say anything track related, I'm kind of out of my element. I will admit that. So I'm sorry that I can't help you there any more than that. I wish I could though. Eduardo, now it's almost 4 a.m. Oh my goodness. Either you wake up very early or you go to bed very late. But either case, I'm happy that you're here, and I mean, thank you so much for sharing your insight in the chat as well. I mean, what you said earlier about the opening up the brake vents, that was when I was making when I was thinking of the topic for today, I didn't even think of that. So I mean, you're firing on all cylinders, even though it's 4 a.m. over there. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm learning just as much as anyone else is here in the chat, thanks to people like you and Soul Slinger. So I'm happy to have you guys here, and I'm thankful. Riley, what about a 2016 BMW 235i? What are the first reliability mods I should do? It has 68K on it for mileage. You're due for a coolant flush very soon. You could do it now. If you do the coolant flush, I would say you should also do the Mickey Mouse flange. If you're here, and if you haven't done the coolant flange yet, I would say check for your oil filter housing gasket. If you do need to change out that gasket, don't flush the coolant. Flush the coolant when you do that job. Let me see if I pull it up. I actually do the job where I only let out a little bit of coolant, but if you haven't done your coolant yet, just drain the coolant while you're doing this job. Let me see here. I will link this video. That's what I would say at 68,000. I mean, you can look at other videos too. You know, I would say like charge pipe, turbo inlet pipe, intercooler, stuff like that is going to increase your reliability, of course. And so I would say you could start there. And here is also a good source. And that should kind of get it on the head for you as far as 70K. You know, check your brakes, you know, your spark plugs, stuff like that. If you just got the car, there's a chance that somebody might have replaced spark plugs maybe about 30,000 miles or 20,000 miles ago, if they did it a little late. If your car is running fine though, if you're not noticing any weird sounds, timing issues, anything like that, then your spark plugs and your ignition coils are probably fine. And it wouldn't hurt to just buy them. And then when it comes up, just swap it out. You can actually wait for them to go bad. Like they show signs that they're going bad. And then when they do, like say like you wake up one morning, you go to work, or you get in the car and you're on your way to work. You'll probably notice it on that drive to work. And it's not bad necessarily to drive on it like that. It's probably going to be like, it's going to sound like you got cams in the car or something like that. It's going whoom, 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 whoom. It's going to give that kind of sound. And then at that time, you know, you could drive it back. It's fine. Maybe don't drive the car until you swap it out. But then, you know, that's the time that you could swap it out. And hopefully that's enough to get you started for the meantime. Eduardo, I will ask my friend. Thank you, Fritz. No, thank you, Eduardo. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that a lot of people will appreciate it. I'm actually interested to see like how many people we can help out there in Italy as well. So I appreciate you looking into that, and I appreciate your insight. And with that, I think we've been on here for about an hour and a half. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. And then if there's nothing else, I'll touch on Riley about what you asked here in just a second, and then we'll close it up for the day. So yeah, charge pipe, I would say follow the pathway of air. You don't need to do the intake, maybe just the filter. Check on the filter, make sure all your filters, your cabin air filters, things like that are working fine. Like I said, you might need to do spark plugs and ignition coils. That's really it. I mean, for the N55, there's not much that you need. Don't worry about walnut blasting. I've seen a lot of even M2s with the N55 that have about 80,000 miles, and those valves look very clean. The BMW did a very good job of that. If you wanted to, you could install an oil catch can, and then if you catch oil in the oil catch can, then you might want to do a walnut blasting. But if you catch virtually no oil in the catch can, don't worry about it. Yeah, no problem, Riley. Anything to help. So with that, guys, I think that we've covered all of our bases for today. If there's something that you'd like me to cover specifically for next week, I think next week I might try to get the rep from Rex Racing Wheels on here to do like a Q&A style. So if you guys have any questions that you guys want me to have preloaded for that one, just let me know. If I can't get them in next week, I'll try for the following week because my wheels should be coming in soon. And hopefully I'll have a review on those, at least the initial impressions video out shortly. So with that, thank you everybody for hanging out, and I'll see all of you guys next week.